afternoon, students. Good afternoon, candidates. Good afternoon, prospective students of the Caribbean Vocational Qualification. Welcome to the third and final in our CVQ series, webinar series. And this one is especially for you. It is entitled the CVQ Portfolio Development Tips. We're happy that you're here this afternoon. And so before I get into the webinar presentation and the facilitation of some important tips to aid you in your portfolio development or to further refine what you have, I'll have our moderator, well, my name is Linda Stewart Doman, and I'll be your facilitator for the afternoon. I am one of the managers from the Syllabus and Curriculum Development Division within the Caribbean Examinations Council. And I'm proud to be presenting to you this afternoon. But before I do so, I'll invite our moderator, Mrs. Jeanette Clacken, at this time to come and share with you a few housekeeping tips on how to use this platform. Welcome, Jeanette.
Good afternoon, Linda, and good afternoon, students. Thank you for joining us. Now, as we begin, I just want to point out that this session is being recorded and will be made available to you by the end of this week. So we ask that you look out for this recording on our social media pages. That's our Facebook, Twitter, and our website page, so that you can have access to the session after today. Additionally, we want to invite you, when we do allow for, that you post your questions or pose your questions in the chat or by raising your hands, and we will give you opportunities when you can actually raise your hands and ask your questions directly to the facilitator. This space is a safe space, and all our questions and our comments are to be respected. So we ask that as your fellow students ask questions or make comments, that you actually recognize them and you respect them, especially if you are responding to persons in the chat. Before we move on, we want to do some technical checks to ensure that you are hearing clearly and that you are able to use the additional features in this webinar. So at this time, I'm going to ask you to just raise your hand if you are able to hear me clearly. I see a number of hands going up. Very good. I'm waiting until we get to a certain threshold. So I invite you at this time to just raise your hand so that we can confirm that all persons are hearing us clearly. All right, wonderful. You may lower your hands. Great. We also want to find out from you where you are representing from this afternoon, what territory or country you are representing from. And so I'm going to ask you to type your territory in the chat at this time. We recognize that there are a number of you in the session this afternoon, but we invite you all to place in the chat the territory or country from which you are joining us this afternoon. Wonderful. Please ensure that you do that before the session ends this afternoon, but we are able to see that most persons are able to communicate in the chat. There is a question and answer forum that you can also place questions in, and our panelists will respond to your questions as best as they can. This afternoon, we have a number of persons supporting this webinar, and I'm going to just introduce them to you quickly. From the Syllabus and Curriculum Division, we have Miss Jodine Williams and Mrs. Debian Hall. And from the Exam Examination Preparation Department, we have Ms. Tanya Motley and Mrs. Michelle McIntosh McCarthy. Your host, your facilitator, as was said before, is Mrs. Linda Doman. And at this point, I will turn back over to her for her to begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So you've just heard from our moderator, Mrs. Jeanette Clacken, who is also an instructional designer from the Caribbean Examinations Council. At this time, I now invite our senior manager, Syllabus and Curriculum Development within the Caribbean Examinations Council, to bid you greetings, students and candidates. And so, Miss Jadine Williams, at this time, we invite her to speak.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Doman. Students, teachers, and I would imagine there may be some parents who would have joined us this afternoon. We are excited to have you engaging with us as we look at this particular strategy. We know that some of you are anxious about your examinations that are coming up, but I just want to say to you that you've been preparing for years. And if I'm to borrow something that young people like to say, you've got this. So go with confidence and go with God as you move into your examinations. Some of you may see some things this evening that will perhaps take you into a reflective mode where you're able to say, but I should have done that a little different while I was in school. But even if you don't get an opportunity to strengthen your own work as you present for the CVQ certificate, remember the lessons you learned today are lessons that you could take with you throughout life. So just do that. Enjoy the session, interact with Mrs. Doman, a parent herself, a teacher. Have fun and learn as much as you can and apply it as you move forward. Thanks, Linda.
And thank you very much, Ms. Jadine Williams, who is our Senior Manager, Syllabus and Curriculum Development Division within the Caribbean Examinations Council. We're happy to have you. So now, over to our students, over to our candidates. And I do know that we have some assessors here with us. We have some CVQ coordinators in this virtual space. And I also believe that we have some parents. A warm welcome to you all. We're happy to have you. And just to let you know, students, we value your participation. We value the interaction. We know this is your space, and we want you to speak as much as possible, especially when we go to our question and answer phase, that aspect of our presentation. We want to hear from you, and we are delighted that you are here with us this afternoon. So, just some quick did you knows. Did you know, students and candidates, that under the CARICOM Heads of Agreement, that CXC was mandated to issue CVQ certificates as of 2008? Did you know? Well, I'm pleased to tell you that since 2008, the Caribbean Examinations Council was mandated by CARICOM to issue CVQ certificates in your secondary schools. Did you also know that CXC issues certificates at levels 1 and 2 to students whom have completed the mandatory units of the CVQ programs of your choice? And did you know that they also issue statements of competence to those students who have only completed some of those units? And so it is so important to have you here as a part of this audience as we do this 3-part webinar series. And we did one just for you CVQ portfolio development tips. I trust this afternoon will be a rewarding experience for you, will be a learning experience for you, and will be an eye-opening experience for you, and be one that will reinforce what you have learned so far and what you have been hearing your assessor speaking and the external verifier and the internal verifier speaking about the quality portfolio development. And so I want to share. I'm delighted. I'm excited about this, colleagues, students. Did you know that when we go on the audit trail, because I'm an auditor for CVQ, one of the highlights of our audit activity is to meet with you students and to do the interviews. And this time around, this year, due to COVID-19, the pandemic, we have not been able, we won't be able to do that as much as we would have had those on-site visits, that interaction with you, that engagement with you. We won't be doing that face-to-face, but guess what? We'll be doing it online in the virtual space, in breakout rooms, or just as a general plenary as you are now sharing as a part of a presentation. We will be asking you questions about all that you've been doing over the 2 years or the 1 year that you have been a part of the CVQ implementation and how you have been developing your portfolios. So I want to speak to you about what we'll be discussing this afternoon. We'll be looking at the overview of CVQ. We'll be looking at selecting portfolio evidence. We'll be looking at how you can present your portfolio evidence. And I know some of you are going to say, but I'm almost complete, or I'm complete. I would have finished my CVQ portfolio. What is Miss talking about? What I'm saying to you is something that you can even refine if you have the opportunity to at this time for the candidates for this year. The ones who are going up for next year, the candidates or the students and prospective students, this is your opportunity now to do it right the first time. This is your opportunity to go back to the drawing board, see what you have, see if it matches up to what I am going to be discussing or we will be talking about this afternoon. And you get this another opportunity now, another chance of fixing, of amending, of correcting, so that you can have a quality portfolio. And I'm sure that's what you want, right, students? I am sure that is what you want. So I understand about the COVID pandemic, and let me tell you something, students. It is affecting us too, as teachers, as curriculum officers, as parents, the assessors who teach you, your principals, your heads of departments, your vice principals. Everybody is affected. Some of us have to resort to the online space. We have to be doing work, and I'm sure for some of you, that online learning is now taking place. For some of you in the territories, the COVID restrictions have been lifted. So I know some of you are back at school. I know some of those territories, some of you are back at school. For some of you, you're just submitting, completing, refining your portfolios to be submitted. So I do understand, students, and I know that it has been so difficult for you, and that is why we said, as a point of serving our customers, because we value you so much, we want to ensure that we are providing some guidance students within this environment, with this COVID-19, and we want to see this as an opportunity to interact with you, to provide the information for you, to allay your fears. Because I know you're fearful about this uncertainty, to boost your confidence, and we want to ensure that it is not so impactful and it doesn't affect you in a negative way. We want to cushion that blow. We want to make sure that, you feel safe with us, and that we will do whatever we can to ensure that all your work that you have been doing will not go in vain. But where you can get those units for certification, we will give you that statement of competence, providing that you have met the criteria. Yes, we will. And also, if you have completed all units within your qualification plan, that the program of choice that you have chosen, your electrical installation, your commercial food preparation, your box growing operation, your crop production, food and drink, you know, we want to ensure general construction. I know some of you are pursuing customer service. You know, we want to ensure that you're getting that certification. Some of you are doing various programs, so it's based on your programs of choice. And you can indicate in the chat now, what is your program of choice? Let us know, what is it that you're doing? Some of you are doing fabric design, fashion design. There's so many, so indicate in the chat as I speak to you. Tell us, we want to hear, what are some of the programs you're all pursuing in your respective territories and institutions? Share with us. We want to know. We are very much interested in what you're doing. So let us know. Tell us. Share it in the chat, students and candidates. So we'll be looking at all of this that I've just mentioned, and of course, how to access CVQ resources. That is, if you have not already done so or have already started. I'm sure some of you would have done that already, because we know we have some of the best and the brightest students and candidates in our region, and we can compete globally. We know that. We are a brand to be reckoned with, or Caribbean students and candidates. So students, you're going to do something for me that I hope will excite you. You're going to describe in one word. You're going to be doing what is called a Slido activity. And maybe some of you have been doing it already. You know, you have applied yourself to this Slido activity. Describe in one word. The Slido is like a software tool that we use to make learning fun. So this is what I want you to do now. You're going to describe in one word how it has been in terms of your online learning experience. So we're going to wait until this Slido comes up, and we are going to find out some more. How have you been, you know, what is your feeling? I don't want to give away any words, because I want you to describe it for me. I want you to share with me, describe in one word what your online experience has been since COVID-19, because it has impacted all of us. You remember I told you, students and candidates, it has impacted all of us. And so I want to find out from you what it is in one word. You want to join at slido.com, students. We'll give you some time to write it. One word. What has your online experience? What has been your online experience? One word since the emergence of COVID-19. And you can tell me, some persons are writing in the chat, but do you want to try the Slido? It is fun, you know, students. It is so much fun. Try it and let us see. Let us see what's happening. Not just in the chat that I want you to write, but log on to the Slido. Do you want to give you some time? I will give you some time. I know some of you are writing in the chat. Anybody want to write on Slido? Anybody want to follow teacher instructions? Who is going to follow teacher instructions? Lovely. I see them coming in. Stressful. Wow, I can imagine. It has been a challenge, because we have never experienced this. It has been unprecedented, never happened before during our existence. It is frustrating, I can imagine, and I can relate. I have 2 children, and I have a 5th former, and sometimes he tells me that he's also frustrated. He's feeling stressed, and that it is challenging at times. Difficult. I hear you, students. I feel your pain. I empathize with you as a teacher. I empathize with you as a parent. Tell me some other things. How are you feeling? Persons are writing in the chat that they can't function properly. It's unusual. I've seen persons saying that it's interesting. I wonder if it's interesting in a good way or in a bad way. It's exhausting. Oh my, it's exhaustive. Can you imagine? It's exhaustive because you're wondering if everything is happening at once, right? Why is it happening? Extremely stressful, jam-packed. Oh my, can you imagine that I can relate? It is different. Can you imagine that I can relate to as an adult and as someone who's a teacher? Yes, I can relate, and as a parent. So I feel your pain. I feel all of what you're saying. All of those emotions, all of those emotions. Yes, they will affect you. You will feel that way. I know overwhelming because it's too much. Tiring. I see boring. You like the action. You like the action-packed activities. Yes, I see them coming in and inattentive. Sometimes people tend to be inattentive. I hope you will be attentive for this session, students and candidates. It's new for you, and so anything is new sometimes can be frightening. Anything is new can be interesting. Anything that is new can be something that gives you an adrenaline rush. Anything that is new, I see hard. Yes, it can be hard at times, especially when we understand the internet connectivity issues, right, students and candidates? The internet, the bandwidth issues, right? Sometimes electricity outage. Yes, and sometimes everybody at home is using the same internet. Sometimes we have to be connecting in the same space. I see someone say very depressing. Oh my, and I hope do not allow it to depress you so much, Look at the bigger picture, look at the bigger prize. I know it is difficult, I know it is hard, but together we can. Together we shall. Students, don't give up now. This is not the time. You've come too far to turn back now. And we won't turn back. No, we won't. No, because with Christ in the vessel, and for all of you, we have different religious beliefs. So whomever is our supreme being, we shall get over this. We shall overcome. We shall use this as a part of our learning experience. Wow, hectic. So many coming in, worrying. I hear you, students. I feel your pain. And I can also relate as a parent. But together, we can. It's scary for some of you. It's tedious and it's weird. But we're going to get through today. It's nerve-wracking, eventful, confusing. My, we could go on and on and on. And students, much respect is due for sharing in this space how you are feeling. We want to let you know that we care. We do care. And whatever we can do to meet you so you can get over those hurdles, those challenges as much as possible. Let us see what we can do within our power. Together. Together we can, and together we shall. Thank you, students, for that. This has been an important turning point and pivot for me as one working within an examination environment, as a teacher and as a parent. Thank you, students. Thank you, candidates, for sharing. Now, I want to go into the overview of CVQ. And I want to share with you, even if some of it will be reinforcement, I still want to let you know about the CVQ. And then we will go into how we present and defend, select, present, and defend information. And I'll be giving you tips about the candidate portfolio. So bear with me, students, as we do this together. What is the CVQ? Did you know that the CVQ award indicates the achievement of a set of competencies in the essential work practices of an occupational area with the levels within the regional qualification framework? Yes. So some of you are doing level 1, some of you are doing level 2. When you go into an NTA or a workplace where we have different workplace models, you will be doing levels 3, levels 4, levels 5. And what it does, it moves you from the minimum required, which is the level 1, to level 5, which is like a degree, a bachelor's degree. A level 3 is like a diploma. A level 4 is like an associate's degree. A level 1, you will require supervision to get you on your feet. When you go into the world of work, so if you did electrical installation at level 1, and you're going to be an electrician, but you will be supervised, right? It's what we call the direct supervised worker. So you're going to be supervised in the workplace. If you're a chef at level 1, you know they want to watch, they want to see your knife skills. They want to see you doing basic sauces and soups. They want to see how you prepare breakfast items. And did you know that you're doing some of the very things that you're doing now? You're mimicking the workplace. It's what we call live work. Yes, what we call authentic assessment. You're doing it as if you're at work. And some of you have done work experience. Some of you have prepared for functions in your community, functions at church, at social gatherings. Some of you have fixed an electric circuit, you know, a bulb that is not working, a wire. Some of you have made a table and a desk. You have made repairs to chairs. You have done a fashion where you maybe did something for a fashion show. Some of you may have worked in an area that may require like a batik, fabric design. Some of you may be doing the crop operations and you have to plant something from a seed. You have to remove the weeds and so on, and you learn about the herbicides and the fungicides and the insecticides. Some of you may be doing ornamental landscaping. Let me tell you something, the CVQ programs of choice are varied, they are wide, where you can choose from and you can get that exposure to work. And that is what this award is about. It indicates the achievement, whether it's at level 1 or level 2, because for the CXC, CVQ is done for levels 1 or levels 2 or levels 1 and 2. Because you may do level 1 in year 1 and you can do level 2 in year 2. It depends on the territory or your ability to do both, or based on the framework that they have in place. And you can use that to get work or go further, where you can do levels 3, levels 4, level 5. So I see some raised hands, but I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until we go to the question and answer session. How is that? Where I can give you my undivided attention and I can fully respond to your questions. How about that? So I want to do that after I have shared with you, you know, the information, we have interacted with the activities. All right. Did you know this? You know, you remember I told you that I'm going to ask you some did you knows? Yes, did you know that the aims of the CVQ is to develop the ideal Caribbean worker? Did you know? You could say yes or no. You could use the symbols. Did you know? Did you know that the CVQ facilitate the movement of skilled certified workers within the Caribbean single market economy? Did you know that you can move from Trinidad to Barbados or Barbados to Jamaica? Or vice versa, depending once their territory is assigned under the Caribbean single market economy, wherever the jobs are? Did you know? That's what the CVQ does. Did you know that you can enhance your profile as a part of the labor force in your territory? Because guess what? You are trained and certified. But not only that, students and candidates and parents who are listening and assessors, we want our students to know that with the CVQ certification, it carries importance. It is valued, you know, because you're counted as being trained and certified, or you're a part of the labor market and the certified labor force. I bet you didn't know that. Tell me if you know that by clicking, or you can write in the chat, yes, you knew that. Did you know that the CVQ harmonize the TVET systems across the region? Yes, because we want, instead of having one from Jamaica, one from Trinidad, one, and they have NVQs within those territories, but because we want everybody who has it in the school to have CVQ, you must not say national vocational qualification. We want it bigger than that. We want your certificate to be broad, what we call bigger yard and bigger broad. So we want to ensure that it says Caribbean rather than national. Yes, did you know? All right, so we're sharing some facts here. Now, who are the partners in CVQ? You see where you are featured? Students, or most valued clients, or students. Yes, the candidates or students who become candidates. Yes, and so we are going to learn more about your role in a while. And CXC is the examination body. The Ministry of Education and the NTA now, they try to implement it in their schools. So they have some things that they have to do, man. They have to complete forms. They have to tell CXC that they want their students to be a part of it, or the territory, and then, or as you would say, your country, whether it be Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, Saba, St. Eustatius, Turks and Caicos, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, just to name a few. And so they get in, they train the teachers now, because they have to train the teachers, to deliver how so that they can help you to prepare the portfolio. So guess what? The NTA, who is and that is the entity now, the National Training Agency, is responsible for that. So what they will do now, they will train the teachers, and the teachers now are no longer called teachers. They're given a special title. You know what that title is called? Who can tell me? Who can tell me what the title is called? Who can tell me? I want to know, and I want the moderator to see if the person shares that. So if I'm going to that particular country next year, I can make sure that we hook up with that student and give them a prize. Anywhere, any of the auditors will send it. Who can tell me what the title of the teacher, what the teacher's title at that point? Anyone? Has anyone answered? The first to answer, though. The first to answer. You can write it in the chat. The first to answer. Just write it in the chat. First to answer. Quickly. What's the name of the title given to the teacher when the teacher accesses this training? Anybody?
We have
Yes,
a number of
Moderator,
responses
anybody?
in the chat.
Yes? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
we do have a number of responses in the chat.
Okay.
The answer you're looking for is assessor,
Yes.
and that person would have been Aurelia Paris Scott.
Okay. So we'll I know someone from the team will get Miss Paris Scott's information, so we can provide her with a little token for that response. Very good. The teacher is trained specially to become an assessor. And then after that, we have different persons there become internal verifiers, because they play different roles. Some persons are internal verifiers, where they're responsible for quality assurance and to make sure that things are going well in the institution as it relates to CVQ. We have external verifiers, the NTA, and I know that you're familiar with external verifiers. They will come in and ensure that you are preparing the CVQ portfolio according to standard, and that it is being done based on how the CXC says it's to be done, because there are guidelines. It is in what we call the CVQ handbook. Then we have the industry persons that we have to partner with, because we want you to work. So we send you on work exposure or work experience, and those territories that do not have that, after that you can go out and work, so that you have an understanding that you are being trained to industry standards. We have our most valued parents, and our parents work with our students to ensure that they attend school on time, they get the necessary equipment, they motivate them to prepare their portfolios and to ensure that they do that, and that feedback is given. They monitor to see what is happening, you know. So it's important. And I want to tell you another role for the Ministry of Education. They monitor what is happening and to see how you're progressing too, and how the teacher who is now the assessor is helping you. Yes. Then we have CXC, as I told you, that issues the certificates. We have CARICOM, who would have partner in terms of having the heads of agreement to allow for CVQ to be in your secondary schools. And we have CANTA, which is the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities. And they are responsible, as I told you, for making sure that it's not just the national vocational qualification, but all the LTAs come to have one standardized CVQ, one set of competency standards based on the program of choice. Now, did you know that the competency standards, they are known as regional occupational standards, the ROS? Did you know? Workplace expectations for the particular job that emphasizes what the competent worker is expected to know and be able to do. That is why it is different. It's a plan, because it gives you the units, right? And you will see on it the unit code and the unit title, and I'm going to share with you what else is on it. And I'm going to share in detail some more things that you'll see on a competency standard. Have you ever seen a competency standard before, or a set of competency standards for your program? Share with me. We want to know. So the regional occupational standards have core mandatory units, and it also has elective units. But guess what? What we are ensuring is that CXC will issue, you can do all the core and the mandatory units, but CXC usually issue certificates for the core or mandatory units. We are trying to see if we can do both after, but it's very important you can do both. But it's very important, however, that the focus be made on the mandatory units, because the mandatory units are those that we issue the full certification once you've completed all of them, as I would have indicated earlier. They suggest the regional occupational standards are so important because did you know that they suggest assessment strategies and instruments, and the instructional design and the learning materials, meaning how the teacher is supposed to assess, or the assessor in this case is supposed to assess you for each unit or sets of units, and what sort of strategy, whether they can use online, whether you maybe have to go on a field trip, whether you have to carry it or something out by demonstration and they'll now observe you in practice, right? Whether it's a written quiz and so on, it will also tell them where they can get information or what type of notes you should be getting. So the regional occupational standard states the function or the duty. It also specifies the tasks. It indicates the unit states the function or the duty. The elements specify the tasks. I'm sure you would have seen one before. The performance criteria indicates the steps and the outcomes. Then you have what is called the range statement. It stipulates the context for the assessment. And then we have the underpinning knowledge and skills, and this details the principles, the methods, and skills to achieve the outcomes. And then this is what is crucial now for your portfolio, the evidence guide, because it outlines the types of evidence and how the evidence should be collected to determine competence. So the evidence is so important that they make sure that the standards have, that's regional occupational standards, have this sort of information so it can guide the assessor to help you in the development of your portfolios. So you see how important the regional occupational standards are? We call them the ROS. You see how important it is? Wow. So you see the structure of the regional occupational standards. Very important, students, very important. Now that we have gone through the overview of CVQ and you understand the award. We went through, some examples of your programs. We also looked at the standards. We also looked at the partners in CVQ. We looked at when it started in the secondary schools, and we spoke about what CXC does, what the ministry does, what you are to do, what the parents are to do, and the NTA and who the NTA trains. One of the persons is a teacher who is so critical, who becomes your assessor. So we've gone through all of that, the roles and so on. Now we're going to go into what we call the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter. And I want you to understand how to select portfolio evidence. Very critical. And I'm going to explain, and by the time I'm finished, I hope you will understand this. But before I do that, what is a portfolio? Did you know? Did you know that the portfolio is an organized, convenient means of collecting and presenting evidence which records, verifies, and confirms you, the candidate, your competence when measured against work required for each unit in the occupational standards? I remember I told you about the occupational standards based on your CVQ program of choice. If you're doing electrical installation, if you're doing fashion designing, fabric design, right? Art and craft production, if you're doing photography, right? So those are just some examples, but that is, portfolio is exactly that. An organized, convenient means of collecting. So you collect your evidence. You're going to present it, and then you record, verify, and confirm. So it must record it. So you must have it because it's evidence-based, and it must verify. So that is why we have the internal verifier and the external verifier. And then it must confirm. So the external verifier now should now confirm it and say, yes, it's true. Khalil can perform basic computations. Jadine can perform workplace communication. Damien can use measurement device. Jeanette can communicate in the workplace. Debian can prepare sauces. Linda can prepare cakes and desserts. That is what the portfolio, after going through the evidence that you have compiled. As the learner, the assessor must use that information to help you to present it in your portfolio so that it records, verifies, the feedback is there and everything, and it confirms your competence when the external verifier gets there to review it and even see you doing a live activity. So what really should be in this portfolio, and what do we want? Because you've heard what it should do, you're going to know that it is a collection of artifacts. And artifacts just mean evidence used to show effort, your own progress, and the products and achievements after you have done the process. And so the candidate, you have to practice. And so that practice will be evident because it reached the rubric, the practical rubric in the portfolios that your assessor would have asked you to put in after they have marked it, evaluated you. That will show the external verifier that and the internal verifier that you have been practicing. Now it is for you to identify problems, because in workplace, we have problems, and there has to be a way to solve them, and you have to follow them by a series of steps. Step 1, what would you do? Step 2, for example, I'm sure some of you have done deal with emergency situations. Follow workplace hygiene procedures. Follow health, safety, and security procedures. I know them, I know them too. So you want to add, so the assessor will give you a scenario, and you're going to now put step, not that you What if they ask you to deal with a bomb or a bomb threat? Or better yet, let's not talk about a bomb threat, a fire, right? You can't, when you're putting the information in the portfolio, you know, you can't show me that the fire, you outed the fire, you know, without showing me the fire raging. Oh, you put on your protective equipment and what you had to do with the fire extinguisher and how you use the fire extinguisher using pass, right? How you pull it, right? You know the process that is identified by pass. So you have to demonstrate it by saying step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, until I see that the fire is no longer there and you are in your protective equipment, and then teacher is able to evaluate you that you did it because you show the photographic evidence. Teacher will also have a rubric that says you did so and so and so, and so you have solved the problems. But guess what? You identify it and you solve it, right? But guess what? I must see that you are doing it too. And so it must have a caption in your portfolio. And we're going to get into that when we talk about presentation of portfolio. Now, you know that you have to reflect. So we move from identify problems, then we just spoke about practice. Did you know that you have to reflect? It's what we call a reflection. When you were doing the unit, how did it make you feel? When you were doing the activities, was it difficult? Wow, was this task more challenging than the other? Was it great? Did you have fun doing it? Because you found it to be a rewarding experience. How was it for you? Collaboration, so important. Did you know that when you go into the world of work, that you have to work with more than 2 persons? We call at least working with 3 to 5 and more persons a group. Did you know that you have to work with more persons than just you alone? You can't be by your very self because you're all brilliant, or you don't like to work with people, or you can't deal with people and their behavior, or you can't deal with them. No. Collaboration is a critical 21st century skill. You have to know to collaborate, and I mean working together and supporting each other. So that must be seen where your peer review, your fellow candidates work, your fellow student, your friends work, and from 1 to 5, did they do well? From 3 for average. 2, did they meet? Were they competent here? You know, or not yet competent? Are you going to tell them why? Did you know that for your portfolio, the teacher is supposed to respond to you, to give you feedback on how you're doing on the quiz, on the projects, on the practical activities, on the case study? Yes, and that should be documented. Yes, it must not be just word of mouth or what teachers call you to the desk and tell you. No, and it can't be excellent or good or bad or poor. No, it must say, you know, Debbie Ann, you have done well, so and so. This is the area you have to improve on. Making the telephone call, you have to ensure that you have eye contact. You have to smile in the phone. You have to remember that you must start first with a greeting, and then the name of the institution, and then the offer of assistance. So there are some steps that you must take. And so if you did not take them, he or she, the assessor, needs to share with you, but it must be documented for what you want to improve. And the external verifier wants to see that you're improving, because this person, the external verifier, wants to confirm the competence, that you're competent, because you didn't know it first, but now you know it, or you knew it before, but you are doing much better. You're progressing. Also, this is sometimes something that we fail at doing, meeting deadlines. I'm going to ask you when I'm finished, how many of you, we're going to be asking some questions, like how many of you have completed your portfolios, but we'll do that as soon as after we get to the Q&A session. We want to know how many of you have completed, how many of you have submitted portfolios. It's important, you know, students. You're talking about your competence. You're talking about a portfolio that can prepare you for a career. based on your program of choice. And so when you have agreed with your assessor on how and when you must deliver the portfolio and the particular elements and components of the portfolio, students and candidates, we want you to meet those deadlines, because you would have to agree to those deadlines when they're sharing the qualification plan or how the training delivery is going to happen and the assessment schedule. So we want you to meet the deadlines because you would have agreed to them. But of course, we're saying even if you didn't do it before, now you know. Some of you will be leaving and going into the world of work. And so this can become what? What we call a life coping skill. And what we call, I don't know if you've ever heard this one before, employability skill. Do you know what is an employability skill? Meeting deadline is one of them. It is skills that employers consider important. Not only that you have your portfolio, no, but that there are certain attitudinal, certain attributes, certain characteristics that you come with that makes you ready for work. Meeting deadlines is one of them. Being punctual is one of them. Follow instructions is one of them. Follow safety guidelines, and I'm sure you got that in the facilitation when your assessor was delivering to you. Now, your portfolio. What is your CVQ portfolio? It incorporates a variety of evidence. So just summarizing that mouthful and that earful that I just went through a while ago, I'm summarizing it now. So in short, all that I did, you must be wondering, did she have to go through all of that? Yes, it was important. Yes. But now I'm giving you a summary of what I've just said. So your CVQ portfolio should incorporate a variety of evidence that is benchmarked against the relevant units of competency. Remember I spoke to you about the regional occupational standards? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, lady. Yes, gentlemen. And it should indicate the continuous and consistent performance of work activities according to workplace, enterprise, and industry standards. What is your CVQ portfolio? Let me tell you again. It should incorporate, first, a variety of evidence. Two, it should be benchmarked against the relevant units of competency. Three, it should be showing continuous and consistent performance of work activities. And four, it must always be according to enterprise or workplace standards or industry standards. And that is how the regional occupational standards are developed, as I indicated to you what they were not too long ago. So we want to make this very interactive, because remember some of you said, oh, sometimes it's boring in this space, and right. So we want to get some activities now. So another activities, in one word, how would you describe your experience developing your portfolio in the preparation of your CVQ portfolio? Again, log on to Slido and let's see what you're saying to us in one word. Describe preparation. Stressful. Stressful seems to be a word that it's repetitive. Stressful. I wonder why though. I want to hear from you when we go to the QA session. Stressful. Profuse. Okay. Profuse. Learning. Frustrating. You don't see it as a learning experience. Only one person has it right, learning. Interesting. It should be. If not, how are you going to make it interesting? I'm going to share some things with you. Time consuming. Really? So are you doing preparing the evidence at one go? I see exciting. It would be exciting for me because I love these things. It's like adrenaline rush. Difficult, annoying. Your learning is annoying. No, I don't want you to feel that way about your learning and it's confusing. No. Oh, for somebody said it's rather educational. Yes, it is. Appealing. It should be. It should be lovely. I hear some of the things coming out. Lovely. It is worrying. Okay, difficult. I wonder what causes it to be difficult. Because if you have that communication with your assessor, it shouldn't be, if you get all your task sheets and you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, it is fun. It would be fun for me too, students. And then it depends on your learning style. So I have to appreciate that, right? Right, I have to appreciate. Some people love hands-on, So people, we do things differently. Audio, visual, we are different. We're different and our learning styles vary. Time consuming. Wow, I want to hear from you what causes that. Wow. For some most part it's stressful. I see this big stressful coming at me, jumping out at me. So it's stressful. All right, complicated, worrisome, wonderful. So it's mixed. Learning experience, amazing. It's okay. New experience. Wow. Tiring. Oh my. Oh my. So person's experience is overbearing. Person said that they're still learning. Okay. We hope that after this session, we're going to get you on track and you're going to share with me what your experience has been. But it's interesting that you're saying that in your experience in the preparation of your CVQ. So it's mixed, but it's also balanced. Some persons are having fun, seeing it as interesting and exciting, while some persons are seeing it tired, cumbersome, overbearing, and annoying, frustrating, but we want your learning experience to be positive. Always remember, students, even when you feel that way and you feel that things are impossible, that you will get through, because guess what? The mind should govern the body. And we should always remember this. Take these nuggets from this experience. Your mind must always govern your body. Your mind should be filled, try to fill it with positive thoughts of how you can get over this and how you can get through this, your learning experience. And another thing I want to leave with you, always choose discipline over motivation. Discipline to get your work done. Discipline to meet your deadlines. Discipline to do well at all times. Discipline with quality in mind to do it right first time. Always remember that you may not have good days. Sometimes you may not feel well. Sometimes you may not feel up to the task. Sometimes you'd prefer to go to a party. Sometimes you'll prefer to go to the beach. Sometimes you prefer to go and hang out with friends. But remember, the discipline is going to keep you to say, after I finish my work, after I've completed this aspect of my portfolio, after I've garnered all that I must do in order to complete my work. Discipline over motivation always. And let your mind, not necessarily your heart, but your mind should govern your body.
Mrs. Doman, I think it's a good time to remind the participants that they can post their questions in the Q&A box or in the chat, but we will not take the hands until you would have completed your presentation.
Indeed. Thank you, Mrs. Clacken, for that information, that little tidbit. So I'm going to encourage you students and candidates and teachers or assessors who are on and or parents to just, wait until we reach our Q&A session. But we have a Q&A section in the chat that we would love for you to state your questions so that we have an able team ready to respond to you. We know you have a lot of questions, and so we stand ready to assist. So just post them document them in the question and answer section so that we can provide you with the necessary responses. And when we would have reached to the Q&A section, we also welcome your questions at that time as well. So bear with us. I trust that you're learning. Are you learning? Is this reinforcement for you? Are you getting any nuggets of wisdom? You can share that in the chat while I speak to you and while we interact. As I told you, it will be highly interactive. Now, evidence. What sort of evidence should be in the portfolio when we're selecting evidence? Oral or written? And the written the quiz, the case studies, the projects, the research, your plan, your incident report, all of those, anything that is documented evidence. Did you know that oral, we can, your assessors can collect oral evidence? Yes. All they need to do is to prepare a document similar to a written quiz, but they will call it oral questioning, or questions to support oral assessment, or question to support observation. Because what they will do will have the questions written out, and they will have the same like marks that they would give to each question, assign each mark, each question with mark or marks, and then they will put a competency rating. The institutions will do theirs differently, but there's some minimum requirements. So they have the questions 1 to 10, and they can give a competency status, whether it be yes or no, and they can assign the marks as well. And they can ask the questions, and they will have the responses that they would see, not you, and then they will ask you to see if those responses are aligned. The responses that you have made is in alignment, or all the responses are in alignment with the questions posed. So it can happen that way. And this is what I'm sure you're used to. You hear that it's competency based, means that it must show that you have the ability to do. That's essentially what it is. Observe when you talk about competency based education and training, right? Competency based education, training, and assessment for CXC, for the council that's adopted that approach called See Better. It means that, are you able to do it while we're at school, or while we're in class doing the facilitation? Are you able to perform it at work, or when you're asked to do it in an assessment? That's basically what it is. Showing is the demonstration of skills, of the under what we call underpinning knowledge that you get from the oral or written, and your attitude. Now the attitude comes out in the when you're doing the skill. So that is why we call it the observation of practice. You demonstrate, we observe. You demonstrate, the assessor observe. You demonstrate, the internal verifier observe. You demonstrate, the external verifier observe you in the process. Also, we look at the indirect or secondary evidence, the third-party reports or assessment. What are those? You see, when you go on work experience and you get your workplace evaluation sheet, and your supervisor completes it based on the activities that you were asked to perform in the world of work, that is what we call a third-party report. You see, if you were to get a recommendation from the supervisor, or even anybody that supervises you at school, because we do have some institutions or some territories that do not allow you to go out because of the what we call liability. There are insurance implications. There may be issues. They may be in trouble if they do that without written authorization and so on. And there are some legal things that they will have to take into consideration. So they may not want you to go on work experience or work exposure. But did you know that you can do work experience or work exposure at school? It's called what we call training-based enterprise. And you can do some of those things. You can help, sometimes they're having a function at school and you do it, you do those things. Did you know that your assessor can actually call it third party, because it's as if you're at work? And they can write about the assessment, or you can have the actual document, say you did a function, and you can show the function agenda, show the pictures of what you did and so on, and evaluation can be done, and it's called a third-party report. Did you know that? Did you know that somebody from outside, like somebody who's an electrician and has a company, can come and see you at work and evaluate you, and can write a reference about you, or you can even secure a job by them seeing what you're doing or reviewing what you have been doing? But they document it, and that is what is called the third-party reports, and can be used as a part of assessment. Now, a part of selecting the evidence. So these are tips, selecting evidence tips. Evidence to be placed. Remember, I told you that it's about portfolio development tips, this webinar. Evidence is to be placed in the portfolio, should be discussed with your assessor all the time. You can't decide what you want to be in the portfolio. No, it must be an agreement with the assessor. So you can't say, I got something from YouTube and I'm putting it in. No, 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 that's a no, no. You and the assessor must agree as to what must go in your portfolio. The evidence for the mandatory units should be placed before the elective options. So say, remember I told you that CXC only issues mandatory units currently. So you cannot go ahead and just do the electives because you like it. For example, in food and drink, you have an elective called provide room service. I used to teach you, I was an assessor too, and I find that students and candidates would want to do provide room service. Why? Because it's interesting, because it is different. There's a peculiar way to do the room service and to build the guests and so on, to answer the phone. It's a combination of a number of other units, and so I find they would want to do it. But as an assessor, I had to remind them that you do your core, or what we call mandatory units first, the ones that you will be getting the certification for, the ones that you'll be the verify and the assessor will be reviewing, and the external verifier was the final say in the confirming the judgment of competence to say you can do this, you can do that. Ensure that your portfolio has the mandatory units first. The electives can come after. Yes, they enhance the training, but it's the mandatory units that gives the full certification. Or when you would have only completed some, it gives you the statement of competence. Remember that tip, students and candidates. Choose your best work. So with your assessor, you're going to choose your best work. So say, for example, you were assessed based on a particular practical on the flow of service or using measuring device, right? Or perform computation, use leveling device, and you may have more than one pieces of work. Guess what you're going to choose? The assessor will help you to choose the one. So she or she may have given you the work over and over to see the best ones based on the performance criteria. Remember I told you about the regional occupational standards, the elements and the performance criteria? You now want to ensure, my students, my dear students and candidates, that you choose the best ones along with your assessor. Then remember too, always, another important tip, give an account of your learning and skills development journey. And I'm going to share with you how you do that, right? There are different ways to do that, and I'm going to share with you. But you know that from once you hear that we're talking about the reflections, right? We're talking about the reflections, and you're going to hear now when you're defending your portfolio, when we get to that stage, how you can give an account of your learning and skills development journey. Now, again, still on selecting portfolios. See how important this is, why we want you to know it? You see, your portfolio evidence must be valid. What do I mean? It should be an appropriate way of demonstrating or showcasing the abilities you want to show. The evidence must be linked to the performance standards. So I can't ask you to perform food and beverage service and you're giving me evidence related to performing or providing room service. They're not the same. No, I can't ask you to follow workplace hygiene, right? And you're giving me something relating to operating a culturally diverse work environment. They are not the same, right? So it's important that whatever it is that you're giving, and you have to, you and the assessor have to look at the elements and the performance criteria of each unit in the competence in the regional occupational standards, and then determine which evidence is suitable and will showcase your competence in that area, will demonstrate your knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Have you ever heard about KSA? Knowledge, skills, and attitude. Knowledge, skills, and attitude. And I'm going to tell you more about that. Yes. Now, your evidence should be authentic. What do I mean? It should be your own work. That's what it means. Authentic. People say, this person is not genuine and the work is not authentic, or the work is not something that the person did on their own, right? It's not their true work. Well, your work in your portfolio must be the evidence of 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 the competence, must be your own work. What did you do? And you must provide that evidence of an achievement or competence. When you provide that, you will need your assessor to sign it as a true representation of your own work. Not somebody else's work now, but your own work that you produced or you were in a group to produce. And remember, I spoke to you about the critical 21st century skill, that of collaboration, working together and supporting each other, but ensuring that your role would have been played so you can be credited for your work that you did in the group. Now we talk about currency. It should be current, not 2 years or 3 years ago, but it shouldn't be no more than 2 years. So we accept it up to 2 years. Do you know why? Because some CVQ programs are for 2 years. Some are for a year, right? So we say up to 2 years. But anything over that, no, it's not considered current. It should be recent enough to be considered a current indication of your knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Because 4 years, maybe you were very good, or 3 years, and then after that you didn't bother to do anything. You didn't you have not been practicing. You have not been identifying the problems. You have not been reflecting. You have not been working in your groups. You have not been meeting deadlines. Remember what we spoke about the collection of artifacts and you as the candidate, what you should do? You remember that earlier slide? Okay. Now, sufficient. We call that sufficiency. It should be sufficient, enough of the appropriate types and quantity of evidence, because quantity is not always quality. No, no, no. You may have a number of quizzes, a number of written, and guess what? Where's the practical to determine your skills, your demo, the observation of practice is missing? Or you may have all of that, but it's only testing one performance outcome. When that happens, it is not quality, it is only quantity. And so we want the evidence in your portfolio to be aligned to the evidence required in the competency standards. Very important. Now we're going to be looking at presenting your portfolio evidence. I want everybody to be at attention. Remember, you're my students in my class. I want you to pay keen attention to what I will be sharing with you now. Presenting your portfolio evidence. First, your portfolio evidence can be presented as paper-based, and I'm sure most of you would have done so now. Prior to us even thinking about COVID, we thought that COVID was only happening in, China. So we were busy doing our work, doing the paper-based, because of course that was accepted as well. And that was the norm, routine, ordinarily. That's what we would have been doing, of course. But we also have electronic portfolios where the information or the images and so on to determine competence can be enclosed in what we call a virtual space. It can be saved on a web platform. It can be on what we call a cloud. It can be saved in Google. They have so many places, so many software now that we're seeing different schools and territories using. Yes. And did you know that it can be a combination of both? CXC accepts, the council accepts paper-based portfolios, electronic portfolios, or a combination of both paper-based and e-portfolios. But guess what? Because the auditors now from CXC cannot come to see you. Can you imagine? We cannot interact with you face to face. We have to do it in the virtual space. And because we're going to be having the online interviews and the online interactions and so on, we have to see some of those documents electronically in terms of submission. So that paper-based portfolio, we need to have a look at it, but we have to do it by um it being submitted, so it has to be scanned and submitted on a platform that we would have spoken to your ministries in your territories already, and they will tell you what to do in terms of how it's going to the administration. They will tell your assessors, they will tell your principals, and they will pass it on to you or candidates and students. You will be further advised. For the students who are still pursuing and will not be candidates this year, let's see what happens next year. And we will advise your territories as to how to proceed. And you will be given that notice as to what to do. All right? All right. So now we have identified how portfolios can be presented. So the portfolio is presented to these persons. We know that it's presented to the assessor, but at any time, your head of institution in your school, your head of department, that's the principal, your head of institution is the principal. They practice instructional leadership, and so they're responsible for all programs in your school, including CVQs. Your head of department may choose to come in and look at what is it that is happening in resource and technology. What is it that is happening in industrial technology? What is happening in arts and design, right? Or art and production, or visual arts overall? What is happening in maybe office administration, business? So there are different departments, and they want to see what's happening with the students. The internal verifier can be a teacher or a head of department usually, and they come in to see in terms of schools, or we have head of institutions that manage, look at lesson plans and so on. It's the same thing that internal verifier does, but they are trained to deal with the competency based approach, which I told you that is basically showing your knowledge and the skills and the attitude, right? Showing what you really can do, having underpinning knowledge and the skills that you will demonstrate, and the attitude, what you have, your approach in doing the skill. Then we have the external verifier. Now the external verifier now is this person now who is coming to look at whether or not you are really competent. So they're trained by the National Training Authority. Remember what I was saying to you about the partners and what they do? So the internal and the external verifiers are trained by the National Training Authority. And the external verifier, his or her role now is to make sure that they're acting on behalf of the National Training Agency to say that you are certified. You not certified rather, but you can get certifications through confirming that you're competent. So that's basically saying that you can be certified. That's basically saying that you can be certified because you have the evidence in the portfolio that they have seen that you have competence for all those units, or maybe some of the units, so you can get statement of competency. Not only that, they can actually come and see you working, performing what we remember I spoke about the live activity and live observation of practice. And that is what we call authentic assessment. Your peers too can be presented to your peers because they're using the rubric now to do the evaluation. Your evaluation, right? So you do a self-evaluation and your peers do an evaluation of the task or activity. So they will be required to see some of the evidence that will be a part of your portfolio. Yes, and they have to sign and date that they have seen it and they have reviewed your work. Yes, is what we call assessment as learning. Now, the Ministry of Education officials want to see what you're doing because remember now they are doing the monitoring and supervision of the assessors and the other members of the institution that are participating in the CVQ implementation. So they want to see what is happening. How are you progressing? Did you complete, not complete? What in terms of the milestone, your own progress, where are you, what they need to do. So they really monitor. and provide the support to your schools. The National Training Agency, I told you that already about the internal and external verification and how they become so important in terms of training the assessors. You remember? The teachers who become assessors. And then you have persons like me. I am a quality assurance auditor. And Michelle McCarthy is also one of the quality assurance auditors. She's also present in the webinar as well. And we have Tanya Motley. And so we now want to come and see your portfolio, and we want to verify, and we don't want to have any doubt in our mind that you're indeed competent. So we want to see it too. But it's after the external verifier has seen it. Right? So we have the assessor that determines your competence, right? We have the internal verifier that comes from your school to ensure that what they say under the quality assurance conditions and based on the procedures, they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. And then the external verifier, not only quality assurance, but they want to make sure that you can do what you say you did, or what the assessor claims that you have done, right? And sometimes they want to see it live. And we spoke about that being authentic assessment. And then you have me, and I told you about your peers and persons like to include me, the quality assurance auditor. The quality assurance auditor that wants to know, make sure that all that is said, the practices are being followed, because I too is an external verifier and was an internal verifier and is a trained assessor. So I want to make sure that all the processes were followed, and so that I can say, yes, I can make a report that, yes, you get a recommendation for your certification because all processes have been followed, including the confirmation of your competence. So that's how it works in terms of the presentation of the portfolio. Now, presenting your evidence. Tips. Remember I told you? Tips. Present information in a logical step-by-step sequence. Each time based on the training, delivery, and assessment plan, or whatever it is that the assessor would have communicated to you, present the information and ensure that it is step by step. Don't have it all over the place. Don't put notes, should not be in your portfolio. It is what we call note padding. Only thing should be in your portfolio should be evidence. You remember I told you about portfolio? It's evidence, a collection of evidence, right? Right? Now, you should write clearly, consistently, and legibly. If you're not writing, the information should be typed, but it should be clear, consistent, and legible. You should organize information by individual units or cluster of units. You should show the plan, the process, and the product. So what does that mean? So the plan would be the instructions that your assessor would have given you, and sometimes they give you task sheets. Ensure that they're in the portfolio for each unit, and you label your portfolio, and I'm going to tell you some. Now it's coming up in a while in the next slide. And then the process should give you the step. Remember I told you about the step by step? So if it's photographic evidence, you must have a caption, and you must include, right? The pictures must tell a story. From you started at point A and you're ending at point Z, but it must tell all the steps that are necessary for the task. There are some process steps or procedures that you must follow, and it must show, and you must depict it, or what we call, you write it for each of them, what it is that you're doing. Did you know that you can't put pictures in that shows you in your not in your personal protective equipment? Did you know that you can be in the lab and not doing a single thing more than loitering, and you can't show those pictures? Did you know that you can't take the pictures posing as if you're on Facebook? I know some of you love social media. You have Instagram accounts and Facebook accounts and WhatsApp accounts, and you have all the others. I hear now one called Telegram. Yes, I'm hearing about them. So I know you have Twitter, and but for this one, for the, for you for this particular um evidence showpiece, your candidate portfolio, no, you can't do that. You have to have the picture showing the work, your competence, until you reach at the product. But you can't just show the product, because it must tell a story, and it must tell the story to the persons who were there. So it must tell the story to the verifier, external verifier, and it must tell the story to the auditor or anyone from the presentation list that I just showed you who can see your portfolio. It must tell a story. Remember, your portfolio should tell a story. Sign and date all evidence produced. If you don't remember anything, remember this. Every piece of evidence in your portfolio should be signed and dated, not only by you. So even your reflection should be signed and dated, but not only by you. So you see, if you see, don't see your assessor sign, ask Miss kindly or sir if they can please sign your evidence in your portfolio. Did you know that if the internal verifier sees your information, the internal verifier must sign it too to say they have seen it and date it? Yes, that's how crucial it is. Because remember now, it is not a test, it's not an exam, where it's under exam conditions, we are leaving that process entirely up to the assessor, to the institution. But we can only verify that based on those guidelines that we would have given to the assessor, to the internal verifier, to the external verifier, to the heads of departments and so on, that they're doing it. And you too, you must play your part by doing all that I'm telling you. All the tips that I've been sharing, selecting the portfolio evidence and presenting the portfolio evidence and all that I would have indicated to you. The onus is on you, my dear students, you, my dear candidates. Now, keep evidence in a safe, secure, and accessible place. How many of you are doing that or have started doing that? What does it mean? Where are you keeping it? Does the school have storage facilities? Do you take it and take it to school when you have work to do? Do you insert your evidence as you complete your work? What is it that you're doing? Can it be found now? The persons, especially for the candidates who are going up this year or January 2021? Tell me, do you have them? Are they available? Are they secure? Are they bounded to something? How are they being preserved? Is it in a safe place? Did the cat or the dog tear up the pages? Was it raining and accidentally fell in a puddle? Did raindrops come and we can't see the information because the paper the evidence sheets are damaged? How have we been keeping? Are they loosely kept and all over the place and are not organized? Very, very important, my dear students and candidates, that you yield to these portfolio development tips. And then this final Slido activity. Wake up, wake up. Identify one document that should be included in your CVQ portfolio. Identify one document or one piece of evidence that should be included in your portfolio. I'm giving you some time to go to the Slido. You know I love to use the Slido. And you know I love to see you using the Slido, my dear tech-savvy students and candidates. You're the technology generation, You're very tech-savvy. Acknowledgement. Yes. Safety. introduction. I'll tell you how you're going to be contextualizing or placing them in your portfolio. Reflection. Introduction. Okay. What else? I see some of my students are not following my instructions. You know, they're not using Slido. They're using the other way, and they're writing in the chat. They're not following my instructions. Critical employability skills. Employability skills, students. Dear students. Reflection, yes. An analysis, yes, which we could call the evaluation. Picture evidence of work. Yes, keep them coming. Keep them coming, students. Keep them coming. Lovely. Profile. Yes. So we may have different names, but you're essentially saying what I would love to hear. Can you tell me some more in the chat, please? Vision and mission, which would come in your personal statement, right? Or your profile. Very good. Very important. What else, colleagues? Pictures of the procedures. I said colleagues, but they're really my students and candidates. So I've been using colleagues over the last 2 days because I was interacting with my colleagues, but students and candidates. Yes, bibliography. Yes. Table of contents. Yes. All right, so document authentication. So you have an understanding of what it is that we are asking for. Pictures of procedure, all right, content, all right. Thank you very much, students, for providing that information. Thank you so much for providing that information. You have been a keen audience. I love working with you. All right. So now we've done that. Let us go in to what I've just asked you. You see, it is to get your mind going and thinking about the components. What's the title page? It details the name of the CVQ program and the name of the candidate, institution, name of assessor. You may include a graphic image. Table of contents. It captures all the main topics in your portfolio and the pages that they can access, right? That can be accessed. It allows the reader to navigate your portfolio easily. So it's easy. Remember I spoke to you about logical step-by-step sequence and how it must be organized? Introduction. It includes your resume, your references, and personal statements. Some person spoke to me about personal profile, but all of this becomes a part of your profile. About the work in your portfolio, it is about you as an individual and your work experience, your journey, and the credit given. Outline of the qualification plan. Units or clusters of units being presented in your portfolio of evidence. So that's what the outline of qualification plan is about. And sometimes we put in the training, the assessor can ask you to put in the training, delivery, and assessment plan, which is also important. But the qualification plan, which is the first sheet of paper before you go into the competency standards, when the assessor shows you the competency standards, that details the list, a summary sheet of the core or mandatory units and the electives. You can use that in your portfolio as well. And then the varied types of evidence. Remember, I was speaking to you about the direct and the indirect and third party. You have projects, case studies, tests, photographic and video evidence, presentations, worksheets, practical assessments, evaluation, rubric sheets. And these are just examples. These are just to include, because there are several types of assessments that can be used, whether they be direct or indirect. Now, the self and peer assessment. It details the competency rating given by you or your peers for a particular task or activity. And it can be from a unit or cluster of units. And I did indicate about the peer assessments that your own peers, your own fellow students will be doing an assessment to validate the work that you have done. To authenticate, it's a part of authenticating your work, that it's a representation of your work. And for self too, to evaluate where you are, how you will need that improvement. So you're going to realistically assess yourself using a rubric sheet, or even the same rubric that is given for the research or the case study, or whatever assessment, whether they be direct or indirect. Now, reflections. It captures your learning journey. Remember, we spoke about what the artifacts are about and what you should do. You should also reflect. What has the experience been like? Your challenges, your achievements, and plans for improvement and opportunities. Then we have the industry attachment. It depicts your work and experience in the industry based on the CVQ program. It includes field trips, work exposure, work study, work evaluation forms, appraisals, evidence of you performing tasks at work. Remember, we spoke about the third party assessment or third party reports. The industry attachment can form part of that. Then you have testimonials, which are a part of the third party report or assessment. It's a written statement of evidence from your supervisor of work produced by you at work. And then we have professional development, and that's any evidence of work or seminars or webinars or achievement that can be a source of evidence towards competence. So professional development, any evidence of course or seminars or webinars or anything that you would have done to upskill or upgrade yourself. So suppose they did a course. I remember as an assessor, I made it was routine for each set of students that I had, or candidates for CVQ, NVQ programs, that they did what was called first aid. So there was an elective called Provide First Aid, but there was a program that they could become first aiders that was offered by an ambulance company in the territory that I worked. And I had the students be professionally certified, and they were certified as first aiders. You have also like first food handlers, within certain professions, you have what is called regulations that certain guidelines that regulate the particular profession. So for example, if you're handling food, you do have what is called a food handler's permit. Did you know that you can put that in your portfolio? Yes. Did you know that even if you're doing barbering or cosmetology, you have to get a permit? Did you know that you can put that in? Yes. You can look at different certifications and they can become a part. Even if you went to a conference or you participated in a session or an expo, those are parts of professional development. Now we're at this point that students and candidates sometimes are fearful, and they're wondering, how do they defend the portfolio evidence? How do they try to convince the auditor and the external verifier and the internal verifier that it is their work in the portfolio? I am going to show you, and I'm going to tell you how. And you're going to visualize the process so that the next time around, it won't be difficult. And in preparation for the audits that will be conducted online, it will put some of your fears to rest. See how important this webinar is? Consider this as so important that you will remember this even after you would have finished with the CVQ program, because you can transfer this knowledge even into the world of work, my dear students and candidates. Defend your awareness of. This is what you will do when the auditor and the external verifier comes, and in this case, we will be doing this in the online space, and it is really when it's time for interviews for you as students. A lot of times students are caught off guard, and candidates, and so we want to make sure that you're prepared, you're in a state of readiness. And so we're saying when we come to you and when we ask you the questions, you should be aware of the CVQ requirements. What are the CVQ requirements? What is it that you should know? What is CVQ? What does it involve? What is it about? What does it mean to you? What are some of what are some of the requirements for the institution? Some of the requirements of me. I'm supposed to produce a portfolio, yes. And it's a portfolio of evidence. And what is this about? The CVQ. It's competency-based approach. What is required of me? I understand the teaching, delivery, and assessment, right? So, and what is it that I'm supposed to do? To attend classes, to participate in the activities, so on. What is my role as a learner? Now, you must know about the competency standards. What is it that I'm doing? So if I'm doing food and drink, what are the units? What have I been doing in those units? So apart from just knowing the topics, what's the unit? Because the unit is huge, starts with an action verb. Prepare, work, produce, provide. So you must also use, perform. It's always action related. The benefits of the CVQ, remember I shared with you the benefits not too long ago and what the CVQ is meant to do. All right, and what can it prepare you to do? To become an entrepreneur? Yes. It can also prepare you to work in an area based on the program of choice according to enterprise standards, because that's how the regional occupational standards are developed, to prepare you at the end of the day to become an employee and to help yourself and to improve your standard of living and your quality of life. Qualification plan, what is that about? The training, delivery, and assessment plan. Was it shared with you? Do you understand it? What are some of the assessment activities that were shared? That sort of thing. Then we want you to defend your knowledge, skills, and attitude. So one, defend your awareness of your program. Of course, defend it. Defend it by asserting yourself and confidently expressing what you know about CVQ. Knowledge, skills, and attitude, a portfolio of evidence. That should show what is it that you've done. Also, the live demonstration of tasks and activities. Live simulation. Remember, I asked you, for example, how do you deal with a fire? Under dealing with emergency situations. For some persons, I don't know if you've done bartending. I've taught bartending. And there are some live sessions that the bartenders, the candidates who are bartenders have to do. They have to show the flair in preparing, for example, a drink called Bob Marley, where you must see the ice green and gold. And each liquor and liqueur must not touch each other. They must just stand in line as if asymmetrical. And they must know mathematics. They must know calculations in order to do that. But for bars, you must have a permit. And so we cannot send students underage to go to a bar in a bar environment. So they have to simulate it at school. So as an assessor, because I was an assessor, I'm still an assessor, but when I was doing this sort of authentic assessment, I would have to simulate the activity with the bar and having them prepare and using their mathematical calculations, because they would have learned that from perform basic computations, which is really mathematics, or some people call it arithmetic. Now, peer and self-evaluations. Now, remember I told you, you evaluate yourself and your fellow students and candidates evaluate you based on what they see in terms of your work and the competencies aligned to the regional occupational standards based on your performance outcomes. Then the knowledge, skills, and attitude is also looked at for you based on your work experience and work exposure. How did you do? What is the evaluation form saying about you in terms of following instructions, collaborating, cleaning up as you go, putting back in designated storage area. You see, I know them because I too was an assessor and an internal verifier and an external verifier. Safety and maintenance of tools, equipment and classroom and the lab space. What have you been doing? What about the safety, the safety and the cleaning roster? Have you been doing it? Your work. Where is the evidence to prove that you have been doing your work? Another critical one, that you don't want to hurt yourself or cause others to become injured, is the personal protective equipment. So young men and young women, you have to wear your personal protective equipment. Those hard boots that you have to wear for the electrical installation and the plumbing, right? And the general maintenance, right? Very important. The lab coats, the overalls, and in some places they are known as coveralls, the chef jackets, the uniform for provide food and beverage service or food and drink is black and white. That's the customary uniform for hospitality services. Housekeeping, you have to wear what is the houseman garments as well as the housekeepers, the room attendants. So you see, students, all that I'm saying to you, very important that you mimic what happens in the world of work. And everywhere you go in the Caribbean, there's what is called a Factories Act. And the Factories Act speaks to that if the place of learning has to assimilate or has to mimic the world of work, and that information is critical, how it's laid out and so on. So your schools also should also mimic the place of work, because this is where your training is taking place, and it is linked to industry and enterprise and what we call workplace standards. So now you have an understanding of, you defend your awareness, you defend the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that you have garnered, and another important one is you defend your learning journey. What has it been like over the 2 years? How will the assessor, well, the assessor would have known, but how will the internal verifier and the external verifier know? Worse, the CVQ auditor that lives in another territory, who doesn't know your day-to-day experience or what it is that you're doing. And so we look at what? The learning journey, such as the reflection, yes, what you would have shared in your portfolio of evidence as to what it is that you have been doing and how it made you feel and what it has done for you. Because guess what? You are supposed to become better individuals. You are supposed to become productive citizens. So the CVQ is to help you with all that. It's supposed to build your confidence. It is supposed to make you better for either the world of work or for further education. Now, performance records. When we look at your learning journey, can we see what you say in the scores and the grade sheets and the competency status that is given to you by the assessor? What about the adequacy of individual instructions? Can you tell us about it? Did your assessor provide that for you? And be honest about it. Be honest. Were there adequate training materials, tools, and equipment? What about the depth of knowledge and experience gained? Are you sufficiently satisfied with what was given? Do you think that more could have been done? What is your recommendation, or what are your recommendations, or what is it that you would like to see done differently for other students or candidates that will be a part of the CVQ program? We want to know. It is very important because it also is a part of what we do in our reports as auditors. So it is very important that you understand how important you are to the process, my dear students and candidates, and how you will play your part in ensuring that this is done. So that is very, very important. So 1, you defend an awareness of CVQ. 2, what is it? Knowledge, defend your knowledge, skills, and attitude. And I told you about attitude. Attitude is about your employability skills, meeting deadlines, following instructions, applying safety rules, right? Not being absent from work, and even if you are, you follow the stated procedures for sick leave and so on, right? Following basic instructions, storing in designated area, adhering to the roster to clean up. So all of these things are important. It is how you see yourself as a person and how you will approach a situation or a thing. That is what attitudes are about. And so it's not just about having the knowledge and skills, but having the right and the appropriate attitude to do the job and to ensure that there's what we call fixity of purpose. Knowing that you're fixed on the knowledge and skills that you have gained and you're ready to apply them with the right attitude. All right, so that is about your learning journey. Now, defending the portfolio evidence. Here are some tips. Arrive at least 10 minutes before the interview, because I told you the defense is an interview. In this case, you still arrive at least 10 minutes, even in the virtual space, because we will put you in the rooms if we're having a breakout room, or what we call a general plenary, where just like how you are now. Be calm. Yes, be calm. There's nothing to be afraid of. Know that I've shared with you what you should do. Absolutely nothing to be afraid of, right? Be polite and courteous. Say good morning, good afternoon. Yes, you do not have to know the person to say good morning, good afternoon. And if they say, how are you? Say, I'm fine, thank you. And how are you? Be gracious. Think before you speak. We're not expecting you to know everything. And we're not expecting you to just speak it out in bullet format. No. We are saying we expect you to be a critical thinker. Again, a part of the 21st century skills, critical thinking. Going through your thoughts and providing the best answer. Committing to memory all that you have learned, and then looking at how you represent that data to the auditor, the external verifier, becomes very important, students and candidates. Then when you don't understand, ask for the question to be restated differently. And you know what too? You can even ask for it to be repeated. You know what? You're saving yourself some time. Take it from me. Yes, when you ask to repeat, yes, you're trying to remember what you're going to say, because sometimes you have a lapse and sometimes you have to remember, and sometimes the information is there. But by the time the external verifier comes back around with the question, you're ready. Yes, that's a tip. It's a secret between me and you. Don't share. You don't have to share. It's our secret. So you ask them to repeat the question. Yes. Show evidence when asked to do so. So sometimes you have the external verifier or the auditor from time to time. It's not that we're saying that you didn't do what you're doing, No, it's not that we don't believe you, but guess what we want you to do? Take your portfolio and show us. In this case, in the online environment, we'll still ask you and we'll still identify a portfolio that we'll go through. So we'll have the evidence beside us before so you don't have to take it over to us. We're going to have it on show, and then you're going to tell us about it. And we may even video you. So like you may need to be in appropriately attired, because you don't know if you're going to be videoed, and you will need to have that information. Sometimes you can showcase something that you have on a laptop or you have with you at home, right? Or at school. And so when you would have done that, you would have defended. So just look back at the portfolio, the tips again, how you defend, very important. So you would have gone through selecting the evidence, presenting the evidence, and then you have what? You're defending the evidence, your work. I have done my work. I can authenticate my work. And a part of authentication is demonstrating that it is a true representation of my work. So it's not just showing it, it's not just selecting it and presenting it, it's also defending it. Very important, my dear students and candidates, as you prepare for the certification strategy, so that you can say, yes, I have attained my statement of competence in electrical installation, in the CVQ program of choice, in fabric design, right? In customer service, in grow box operations, in crop production. And you're looking at a CVQ certified candidate. I'm ready for the world of work. I am CVQ. I represent the brand CVQ. Very important. Or I am fully certified and would have been issued a certificate in commercial food preparation. Yes, in garment construction, garment production, fashion designing. Yes, I am competent because I am ready to go out based on my program of choice to work, or better yet, I'm going to access higher education. I am ready. I am CVQ ready. Now, for those of you who want to access resources for CVQ, because remember now, see better competency-based education, training, and assessment is not final. It's progressive. So you move from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. So you can still access these resources, and we welcome you to. And you can move at various levels to up to level 5, and in the framework, for some frameworks, based on territory, it goes up to levels 1 through to 8. Accessing resources for CVQ, very important. If you want to know more about CVQ, you can access the information at www.cxc.org. You can get information about the handbook and about even the information that is used by the external verifiers and the training and assessment audit sheet. There you will find even the candidate checklist, and you can use it. You can look at it too. Use it as a resource. Yes, and conduct your own audit of self. You can do that. All of it is there. You can also find competency standards. So if you are not sure about something, just go in and you'll see the regional occupational standards at this same site. Right on this site, www.cxc.org. The Learning Hub. We provide this resource for our assessors and our students. You can go on the Learning Hub and you can find resources for the CVQ program that you're doing. Yes, for most of your programs. And if it's not there yet, you can speak to us so we can put it there and have experts do it. Even some of the very assessors that are facilitating the CVQ program, even your assessor may very well be considered to produce the content for the resource. Yes, it has quizzes, and you will find some presentations. Yes, you'll find some Word documents that you can use. You'll find videos on the particular units in the regional occupational standards. And you can access various forms of different types of resources on our Learning Hub, which is provides learners and instructors with a single access point to multiple resources that gears towards your success. And if you're doing other programs, it supports the teaching, learning, and assessment of the suite of programs offered by the Caribbean Examinations Council to include CPEA, CCSLC, if you're doing your CSEC, which I know some of you are doing now, um, also CAPE and CSEC, CXCAD for some of you, and it's just a composite of a number of units from CAPE that makes up the CXCAD. So if you're looking at doing CAPE, why not ask about it in your institution or your territory? Chances are you may very well have the opportunity to participate in the being enrolled and also becoming CXCAD certified. And some of those CAPE units also are aligned with CVQ, where you can claim competencies for CVQ. Yes, they're workplace competencies. And I remember as a well, I didn't have a CVQ at the time, but as NVQ in food and beverage. When I went, I remember going abroad to study, and I was able to work part time, 20 hours, because I had my qualification in food and beverage service. So you can do the same too. And I encourage you to do all that you can to become CVQ certified, either attaining full certification or partial certification, the unit of with units of competence, or a unit of competence. And so I urge you, my dear students and candidates, you can, you shall, and you will. And so at this time, we've come to the end of this session in terms of information sharing. And I now invite questions from you. I know you were busy writing in the question and answer section of the Zoom platform, on the Zoom platform, but I also know that you have some questions from me and my colleagues from the Caribbean Examinations Council, and we stand ready to respond to your queries. So at this time,
Participants, we invite you to raise your hand now to ask your questions. We have answered quite a number of questions in the Q&A box, and some questions have already been answered in the chat. But if you have any additional questions, you're invited to raise your hands at this time. Okay, so we see a few hands up, Mrs. Doman. We have Paula Child, that is the name of the device being used, Paula Child. I'm not sure if this is a full name. And Cynthia Anthony. All right, so we're gonna start in that order, and then we are now seeing a few more hands coming up. So Paula Child, I'm gonna unmute you now. Okay, okay, so Cynthia, you're up next. Cynthia Anthony, I'm gonna unmute you now. Go ahead, Cynthia, unmute your mic. So Cynthia's hand has been up for a long time. So let's move on to Sherilyn Abraham. Go ahead, Sherilyn, you may unmute your mic.
Excuse me, will there be another lesson?
another lesson similar to
Yeah.
this, like a follow-up?
Yes.
Okay, for example, what is it that you'd like to see?
Well, as a first year CVQ student, I would like to know more about their portfolio.
Okay, anything specific or additional that you'd like to know? Because that information is specifically all that we think would put you on a path to achieve success in your portfolio development. So tell me if there's anything.
Yeah, I would like to know about the information that an evidence that we have to put in the portfolio. The
Oh,
evidence.
so so that's now where your assessor comes in. Your
Yeah.
assessor now will take you now and be more specific to look at the units in your qualification plan and will share with you what the evidence, what are the evidence requirements for each unit or cluster that he or she will be sharing with you. May I ask where you're from and your CVQ program?
Yes, I'm from Latam, and my working area is furniture making.
Okay, lovely. Welcome. So furniture making, I'm sure what will happen is that your assessor will share with you, and maybe I'll send a reminder to the territories that they will share with you what it is that they will be teaching you, or what we call facilitation. And then they will assess you in those skills and they will tell you how to organize your portfolio. So I will try to find out about that aspect. But that's when the assessor now makes it more specific and gives you the information on about furniture making regional occupational standards. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever
Yes,
seen the okay, so the assessor will share with you now the evidence that will be collected, and from that, the evidence that they collect, they will determine what is selected for your portfolio. All
yes,
right.
yes.
And if you're
Thank you.
having any issues, email me directly. Ldoman, Ldoman. I'm sure someone can write it in the chat as well, at cxc.org. And you can tell me how your learning is going. All right?
Okay. Yeah,
All
thank you.
right. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. The next question comes from the chat and it reads, if we are not ready for assessment in July, can we be assessed in January?
Uh, that's a very good question. If you're not ready for assessment, then I would need to find out some more. Is it that your portfolio is not ready? Would it mean that you have not yet submitted your portfolio? Because there are a number of factors that could have caused you not to be ready for this period. And so, based on those questions, or based on assessment from your territory, or more so from your assessor, then a determination will be made. Unfortunately, the council cannot get involved in those matters. So we do hope that it was a case of you completing, or for you believe that you're not ready, and that information would have been shared with your assessor, who would now inform the principal, and because there's a chain of communication, and then it goes to your ministry, and then the ministry would communicate that to CXC, so that when they get all the information of all the candidates in the territory, then a determination will be made, not only on an individual basis, but on whether or not the territory itself, based on the number of candidates that are ready, if we will do the certification strategy for the territory in August, as you just said, July to August, or January. So that is something that you may have to have discussion. You may have to raise those questions with your assessor, or I don't know if you have done it already, but we wouldn't be in a position to say yes or no because the territory makes that decision. I hope you're clear, or if you want me to provide further assistance, then you may speak to me outside based on the email, but I'm just sharing with you that that is what we usually remember the partners in education, remember the partners in the CVQ and their role. Well, the ministry would provide CXC with that information if the majority of candidates are not able to do it, to have their portfolios reviewed this year.
All right, thank you for that. We have a question here from T. Radan. So T. Radan, you may want to open your microphone now. Not hearing from All right, so let's take John Nwando. John Nwando, you may open your microphone.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My question was I wanted to know, as the girls said, when we will be getting the next lesson because I don't really understand plenty about the CVQ. It's my first time doing it, and I
Okay.
want
Can
to
you
know more.
go ahead?
I wanted to know more about what CVQ really is and more about the portfolio and thing.
Okay. So, can you tell me the territory and the program that you're doing? Because usually they would provide no further information about CVQ. What I'm providing just general information that if you didn't know this about portfolio, I am telling you and giving you some tips to help you. But your territory and your institution now is to provide greater detail about the CVQ program and more about the portfolio development and what is it that you're to do. But for us as the examination body, we want to ensure that you understand the portfolio development process and the tips that you can use to have an excellent portfolio or produce a quality portfolio. So which territory are you?
I doing cosmetology in the hair section.
Okay, but which country are you from?
I'm not from here. I'm from Ghana, but I doing
Oh,
school
Guyana.
in
Yes,
here.
that's fine. That's fine. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. I know Guyana it's their first time doing the CVQ, but thank you. We want that information. Thank you.
T. Rasharadan, we just want to ensure that you get your question answered, so you may open your microphone now and begin to speak. Okay, so we'll move on to Christy Alexander. Christy, you may.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
It's not really a question. I'm in fourth form, but I'm going to fourth form. And when I heard about the CVQ, CXC, and stuff like that, I thought it was very difficult. But when I heard your presentation, I took some notes and I found out it was not as difficult as I thought it was. So I just want to thank you.
Oh, lovely. You're most welcome, my dear. You're most welcome. We're here to serve you.
Okay.
That's refreshing to hear.
All right, we have a question in the chat. It's from someone inquiring about fashion, the fashion unit, and if it's offered in Guyana.
Okay, so from what I know that it is not yet it has not yet been offered, or I guess it could be a possibility, but you can also check with your Ministry of Education and they will share with you the programs that are offered. So you have different offerings or different programs across territories. So you have to ask, maybe follow up maybe with your principal who can ask about it, or I'm not sure if it is shared on your ministry's website. But I know for now, it is currently not being offered based on my record.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not seeing any other questions. Let me have a look in the question and answer bar. All right, so we have one question about the portfolio. This participant wants to know more about it. It's their first time.
Like I would have shared, I realized based on the questions that are coming that these students want to hear more and to know more about portfolios. So the respective ministries and so on. Maybe we'll have to have, well, this information, students, will be available on our CXC website in another week or so. So you can access the same information that was shared. And I'm going to encourage you to also find out more about CVQs if you have the NT and NTA in your territory, as well as the ministries of education, because they should be providing that sort of support to your institutions so that you can know more. We're going to be having what we called a frequently asked questions, and also about the 2020 strategy for this year and January 2021. And we'll have another one that speaks about CVQ, and it will be available on our website between now and next week. So have no fear. We will be here to support you as best as we can, as you also get support in your territories.
Thank you for that. Are students issued with certificate at the end of the first year of the program?
The certificates are issued based on the duration of your program. So if you are in an institution that offers a 2-year program where you start at grade 10 and you complete at grade 11, then it's after the 2 years that you're issued with a certificate, again, providing that the judgment of competence would have been confirmed in all of your units, mandatory units. If it's only for some, then you only get a statement of competence. Also, if the program is done for a year, you get you get certification, or again, units of competence, providing you can confirm competence in all those areas, or an external verifier can do so for you. And providing that the verification would have been done also by the quality assurance audit of CXC, then it is all dependent on the duration of your program. So check with your institution to see how long your program is.
Thank you. Is the certification recognized beyond the region, international recognition?
Yes, the CVQ, I spoke about the Caribbean single market economy earlier, and there are territories or countries abroad that accept the CVQ. I was able to work in Canada with that sort of qualification, and I'm sure, especially, I don't know, students, you have heard about the different programs, like the programs abroad, skills abroad programs, where you can work in different establishments and different professions, different skill areas. If you have heard about it, then it is possible where you can use the CVQ and also gain employment in some of these places, because I would have you know that the CVQ is benchmarked against global standards in Australia, in the UK. It carries what we call recognition value. You can take it anywhere you go, and it's also what we call transferable, where persons are able to see the competencies and recognize the competencies that you can actually participate and do that sort of work in the international space. So yes.
Thank you. We just have a few more questions. I think we have time for maybe 3 more questions. So I'll take this first one. If your portfolio is not able to be finished in July, what will happen?
At students, let me hope that this information, or as it concerns portfolio submission, that your institutions and the ministries of education in your territory would have been communicating with you and would have been giving you information, because if your portfolio is not ready for this year, regrettably, the council would not be able to certify or provide any units of competence if there isn't any competence in your portfolio to show, regrettably. And so this must be a conversation that is had with your assessor so that the information channels up to your Ministry of Education through your principal. I do hope, colleagues, students and candidates, that it would be, I do hope that you're able to claim the competencies based on the work that you were supposed to do, and that it's not the COVID, because remember those factors will be considered, and you will be getting some poll questions in a while to say, to ask the questions to tell us, have you completed your portfolio? Have you submitted your portfolio? Those are areas that we will be asking you because we want to know where you are. And if you have not, find out if there's any possibility of you being in the January 2021 cohort that you may be considered by your territory to also be reviewed so that we can recognize your competency students. So now is the time to really have that conversation with your school.
Okay, so we are not seeing any other questions. So at this time, we're gonna venture over into the evaluation segment. I'm not sure, Mrs. Doman, if you have any other comments, any final comments that you want to share with the team before we launch the polls?
Well, just to say to the students and the candidates that we thank you for being a part of this session, and your interaction you have shared some experiences, and we will take that into consideration. You have shared your own fears and your own experience relating to the online learning space. You have shared how you feel in terms of the candidate portfolio development process. You have also shared that you need more information on portfolio and you need more guidance as it relates to portfolio. Some of you are new, some of you are doing it for the first time, your first year. Even that candidates are speaking as to the incompleteness of their portfolios, and we're hearing some things that we know that need fixing as we move and forward. And we want to thank you for being open and candid. We want to thank you for being a part of the presentation and to understand and to be for it to have been such an interactive session. Students, thank you so much. And we don't want you to leave. We want you to complete the poll because it's important to us and to you as well. So we want you to be a part of it. It's still a part of the engagement. But thank you so much for being here. A number of you have been here and sharing, and we want to thank you from the territories and for representing your territory so well. Applaud yourselves. You have done well. And continue to fly the banner of CVQ high. Continue to share that you were actually a product of CVQ. Validate your competencies by demonstrating the necessary knowledge, skills, and attitude required in the workplace and in the world. Become productive citizens where you go. Contribute to global competitiveness. Contribute to the prosperity of you as an individual and of your respective territories and the Caribbean as a region. Be the best you can be. Never give up. And remember, you can, you will, and you shall. Have fixity and consistency of purpose. Go out, do well, and remember, journey of 1,000 miles begins with only one step. Have a great rest of the afternoon, students and candidates. Thank you for being a part. And remember, you will be required to complete the poll. So don't leave just yet. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Doman. Before you go, students, we invite you to do two things for us. We're going to launch a poll question for you to give us your feedback about today's session. But before we do that, would you please just in the chat one last time, just indicate if you have completed your CVQ portfolio assignment for 2020, just put yes or no in the chat at this time so we can have a sense as to how far you are in the process. We'll give you a minute or so to do that. All right, we continue to wait for just a few moments. Those of you who have completed that, in a few seconds, we'll launch our final question in the form of a poll, and we ask you to respond to it before you go. While you do that, we just want to remind you that you are served this afternoon by a full group of the CXE team, Ms. Tanya Motley and Mrs. Michelle McIntosh McCarthy from the Exam Preparation and Development Department, Ms. Jodine Williams, Mrs. Debian Hall, Mrs. Linda Doman from the Syllabus and Curriculum Development Division, and myself, Janet Clacken. All right, at this time, we will launch our poll for you to give us your feedback on today's session. We invite you at this time to give us your feedback on how you found today's session. So we have launched our final evaluation question or poll, and we ask for you to just indicate how you found today's session by selecting one of the responses in the poll. We'll give you a few more seconds on that. Okay, so we'll leave the poll up for those of you yet to indicate. But at this time, I want to just say that it was our pleasure serving you this afternoon, and we wish for you a wonderful rest of the week, a great weekend, and all the best as you continue your preparations towards certification. Thank you, and we will close this room in about 30 seconds. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, attendees. You have yourselves a good evening.
Good evening,
Goodbye.
students and candidates, by assessors and parents.